The unexpected command Ethan Cole stood in the great hall of the Interstellar Council. The air felt heavy, as if every breath carried a hidden weight. Around him, towering alien pillars glowed with blue light, casting shadows that seemed alive. On one side of the room stood his human family elders, dressed in dark ceremonial robes. On the other side, alien leaders in silver armor stood tall and silent, their glowing eyes watching him closely. Ethan's mind raced. Why were both sides here? Why was his name called out in front of everyone? The voice of the alien High Chancellor broke the silence. Ethan Cole, by the ancient pact between our peoples, you are required to bond with Liara of the Valen. The words struck him like a sudden blow. Bond with an alien? And not just any alien, Liara, the daughter of the Valen warlord, a people who had once been humanity's fiercest enemy. Ethan's family elders looked at him with firm, unblinking eyes, as if telling him without words that refusal was not an option. The alien council members stared with the same intensity. Ethan's voice came out low and tense. I don't even know her. The Chancellor's tone was cold. You will know her, and you will bond. The pact is clear. The bond must be made to prevent war between our worlds. A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. Ethan glanced toward Liara for the first time. She stood tall, her silver hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders, her golden eyes locked on his. There was no warmth there, only the cool distance of someone forced into the same trap. Her expression was unreadable, but Ethan could feel the tension in the air between them. His uncle, standing beside him, leaned in and whispered, If you refuse, Ethan, our alliance will break and blood will be spilled. Do not be the spark that lights that fire. Ethan's jaw tightened. He hated being a pawn in political games, but the weight of two worlds rested on his shoulders. The alien warlord, Liara's father, stepped forward. His voice was deep and commanding. My daughter will honor this pact. She will stand beside this human as her bonded partner, and together they will carry the peace of our people. Liara's eyes narrowed slightly, but she said nothing. The ceremony was scheduled for the next moon cycle. Until then, they would be given time to learn each other. Ethan could almost laugh at the absurdity. What could possibly be learned in such a short time that would make this bond real? After the council session ended, Ethan was led to a private chamber. The door opened, and there she was, standing by the tall window, watching the city's floating lights up close. Liara was even more striking, her features sharp yet graceful, her armor gleaming in the dim light, but the coldness in her gaze reminded him that beauty was not the same as kindness. You don't want this any more than I do, he said, breaking the silence. Liara turned slowly to face him, her voice smooth but edged with steel. You are correct, human, but our wants do not matter here. Ethan frowned. So we're just going to pretend to like this. Her lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. Pretend if you wish, I will not. My people do not believe in lies. The air between them grew heavier. Ethan felt frustration building, but also a strange curiosity. There was something in her eyes, not just coldness, but a shadow of something deeper. Pain? Loss? He wasn't sure. Before he could speak again, a quiet chime sounded. A human council guard entered and informed them that their movements from now on would be monitored for security purposes. Ethan caught the faintest flicker of annoyance. In Lyra's eyes, it was the first thing they seemed to have in common. As night fell over the city, Ethan lay awake in his quarters. The alien skyline glowed outside his window, silver towers rising into the dark. He thought about the weight of the command given to him, about Lyra's unreadable face, about the fact that their bond was not just a personal matter. It was a chain linking two worlds, a chain that could either hold peace together or shatter it entirely. In another part of the city, Liara stood alone on her balcony. She looked up at the twin moons, her mind replaying the moment her father had spoken for her. Her people had their own reasons for this bond, reasons Ethan did not yet know. She placed a hand over her heart, feeling the quiet beat within. and for the first time, she wondered if that beat would ever match his, somewhere in the shadows of the alien capital. A cloaked figure moved through the streets. Their voice was a whisper in the dark. The bond must not happen. The message was sent, and with it, the first move of a dangerous game had begun. The reluctant meeting, the first official meeting between Ethan and Lyra took place in a high crystal chamber at the top of the Valen embassy. The walls shimmered like frozen water, reflecting the light of the twin suns. 2 guards from each side stood at opposite ends of the room. Their eyes locked on each other more than on the pair they were meant to protect. Ethan entered first, escorted by a human council officer. His boots echoed against the smooth floor. The sound sharpened the quiet. Lyra stood near the far window, her armor replaced with a flowing silver robe that matched the faint glow of her skin. She didn't turn to greet him, but her golden eyes followed his reflection in the glass. "You're late," she said simply. Ethan arched an eyebrow. "I didn't know we were on a schedule." Lyra finally turned, the fabric of her robe catching the light like liquid metal. Her expression was calm, but her voice carried a subtle edge. "When you share a bond with someone, time matters," Ethan smirked slightly. "We're not bonded yet." For a moment, the room seemed colder, her gaze fixed on him, sharp as a blade. "No, but soon we will be. And I don't like wasting time with someone I don't trust." Ethan folded his arms. "That makes 2 of us." They sat across from each other at a low table carved from black stone. An attendant brought a tray of drinks, a pale golden liquid in crystal cups. Ethan eyed it warily. "It's safe," Lyra said, sipping hers first, or at least safe for Valens. Ethan gave her a dry look before tasting it. The drink sweet and strangely warm. The conversation that followed was not pleasant. Ethan asked about the bonding ceremony. Lyra replied with short, formal answers, as if reading from a script. When he tried to speak casually, she ignored the attempt, steering the talk back to rules, traditions, and obligations. It was like talking to a wall, a very beautiful wall with sharp edges. Then Ethan noticed something. Whenever the alien guards shifted position, Lyra's eyes flickered toward them. Just for a fraction of a second. It wasn't fear exactly, more like suspicion. Ethan leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "You don't like being watched either, do you?" She paused, setting her cup down slowly. "Our people have enemies," she said carefully. "Not all of them are beyond these walls." Before he could ask more, a sudden flicker of movement caught Ethan's eye. One of the alien guards pressed a finger to his earpiece and whispered something. Lyra's gaze sharpened. "Meeting is over," she said quickly, rising from her seat. Ethan stood too, confused. "What happened?" "Nothing you need to worry about," she replied, already walking toward the door. But her voice was tighter now, as if she didn't quite believe her own words. As they exited the chamber, Ethan noticed the human officer subtly scanning the hallway. The air felt heavier again, like something unseen had just passed between them all. When they reached the split in the corridor, Lyra glanced back at him, her eyes unreadable. "We are being tested. Human," she said quietly. "Not just by our families, but by someone else. And if we fail, the bond won't matter." The doors closed between them. Ethan stood there for a long moment, her words replaying in his mind. Somehow, this was no longer just about marriage or politics. There was another game being played. One where the rules were still hidden, and the stakes were higher than either of them had been told. Far below, in the shadowed streets of the alien capital, the cloaked figure from before watched the embassy tower. Their voice was calm but laced. "With purpose, the first seeds of doubt are planted." And somewhere deep inside the tower, Lyra's golden eyes caught the faint reflection of a moving shadow across her balcony. The first test the council wasted no time. If Ethan and Lyra were to bond, they had to prove they could work together. Their first challenge, a diplomatic supply run to a neutral colony on the moon of Tarvan 6. Simple, safe, and boring. Or so Ethan was told. The ship assigned to them was a small diplomatic transport. Sleek and silver, with minimal crew, Liara arrived first, dressed in light combat gear instead of ceremonial robes. Ethan raised an eyebrow as he stepped aboard. "Expecting trouble?" he asked. Liara didn't smile. Trouble does not wait for an invitation. They took their seats in the cockpit, the stars stretching into thin lines as the ship jumped into slipstream travel. For the first hour, silence ruled between them. Ethan tried a few small comments, but Liara answered in short, clipped words. It was clear. Trust was still a fragile thing between them. Halfway through the journey, the console lights flickered. A deep hum ran through the ship, followed by a sharp metallic groan. Ethan leaned forward. "That's not normal." Liara was already at the controls, scanning readouts. "Engine power drop. Something is interfering with our core systems." Before they could react, a blinding flash burst through the viewport. The ship jerked violently, alarms screaming in both human and Valen languages. A shockwave slammed into them, sending Ethan out of his seat. The control panel sparked, filling the cockpit with smoke. "We've been hit," Liara shouted, gripping the manual controls. "Not by an asteroid. This was deliberate." The ship spun toward the surface of Tarvan 6's moon, its gray, jagged terrain rushing up to meet them. Ethan grabbed the stabilizer lever, forcing the craft into a shallow glide. Liara fought the thrusters until the last second. The ship crashed in a shower of dust and metal, sliding across the rocky ground before coming to a grinding halt. For a long moment, there was only the sound of hissing steam and distant echoes. Ethan pushed himself up, wincing at a sharp pain in his ribs. "You alive?" he asked, coughing through the smoke. Liara was already unstrapping herself, a small cut on her cheek. "Yes, but whoever did this will not be for long," she said coldly. They gathered what supplies they could, a survival pack, 2 plasma sidearms, and a portable beacon. But when Liara tried to activate the beacon, nothing happened. "Signal blocked," she said grimly. Ethan frowned. "Blocked from where?" Liara's eyes scanned the distant hills. "From here," she said, pointing toward a cluster of dark, jagged rocks that seemed to watch them back. An hour into their trek toward higher ground, they heard it. The low, bone-deep growl of something following. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. Shapes moved in the dust, large and fast, their glowing eyes fixed on the 2 outsiders. "They're hunting us," Ethan muttered, tightening his grip on the plasma gun. The creatures burst forward, 6-legged predators with armored hides and rows of serrated teeth. The first one lunged at Ethan. He fired, the plasma bolt striking its chest and sending it tumbling back. Another came from the side, claws slashing toward Liara. She spun low, her blade flashing as it sliced through the creature's leg. For a moment, the 2 of them moved as one. No hesitation, no mistrust, just survival. When the last predator fell, Ethan leaned against a rock, breathing hard. Liara stood nearby, her weapon still ready. She didn't look at him, but her voice was quieter now. "You fight well, for a human." Ethan gave a short laugh. "And you're not bad for someone who thought I'd get her killed." They continued toward the hills, but neither noticed the small drone hovering high above. Its lens focused on them. In a dark chamber far from Tarvan 6, the cloaked figure watched the feed. "They survived the first test," the voice murmured. "Good. Now the real game begins." Asterisk secrets in the dark night had fallen on Tarvan 6's barren moon. Ethan and Liara found shelter in a jagged cave carved by ancient winds. The entrance was narrow, shielding them from the cold air that cut across the rocky plains. Inside, faint bioluminescent crystals glowed in the walls, casting pale blue light over their faces. They had made a small fire from their survival pack's heat rods. The flames gave warmth, but not comfort. Ethan sat with his back against the wall, checking his side where the crash had bruised him badly. Liara knelt a few steps away, her blade in her lap, silently polishing it with a strip of cloth. For a long time, neither spoke. The only sounds were the quiet hum of the fire rods and the faint whistle of wind outside. Ethan finally broke the silence. "You knew this wasn't an accident," he said quietly. Lyra's golden eyes flicked toward him, but she kept her hands moving on the blade. "I suspected," she replied. "And I was right." Ethan studied her face. "You're not surprised someone tried to kill us, why?" Lyra's hands stilled. She stared into the pale blue glow, her voice lower now. "Because I have been hunted before, human." Her gaze seemed to go far away. "When I was younger, I trusted a human soldier. He fought beside me during the Kernish siege. We survived battle together, shared food, shared the same ground to sleep. I thought we were allies." Her jaw tightened. "But one night, he sold my location to the enemy. For a handful of credits, my brother died in the ambush meant for me." Ethan didn't look away. He could hear the weight in her words, the kind of pain that stayed for years. "I'm not him," he said. Lyra's eyes locked on his. "Prove it," she said simply. Then she returned to cleaning her blade. Ethan leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. "You think trust comes easy for me?" he asked. "My unit was sent to defend a colony near the Rift Gate. We thought we had backup coming, but the Council pulled us out on paper before the fight even started, only. They forgot to tell us. By the time we knew, half my men were gone." He looked down at his hands. "Sometimes I still see their faces when I close my eyes." The firelight flickered between them. For the first time, there was no sharpness in Lyra's gaze, only a quiet recognition. They didn't smile, didn't offer false comfort, but something in the air shifted. A thread of understanding began to form, fragile but real. Then, a faint sound echoed from the cave entrance. A soft scrape against stone. Both moved instantly, weapons drawn. The light from the crystals revealed a long shadow sliding along the wall. Ethan stepped forward slowly, his plasma gun aimed. Lyra moved around the side, her blade ready, when they reached the opening. There was nothing, only the empty rocks and the cold wind. But far above, hidden against the dark sky, a small drone turned silently and drifted away, its lens caught the image of Ethan and Lyra standing side by side. In a secure chamber light years away, the cloaked figure watched the feed with a faint smile. "They are beginning to trust each other," the voice murmured. "That will make breaking them much more satisfying." Back in the cave, Lyra lowered her blade but didn't sit down again. Instead, she stood near the entrance, her eyes scanning the horizon. Ethan settled back near the fire, his mind turning over her words. They still didn't trust each other fully. But tonight, for the first time, they weren't enemies either. Outside, the twin moons cast their light over the barren land. And somewhere beyond the hills, the next trial waited for them in the shadows. The Forced chose 2 days after their crash. Ethan and Lyra were finally located by a rescue ship. The sleek craft descended onto the rocky plains, its landing lights cutting through the dusty air. Ethan had expected relief, maybe even a moment of peace. Instead, the first thing he saw when the hatch opened was the cold stare of the Human Council commander. The moment they stepped aboard, armed guards surrounded them. Lyra's hand instinctively went to her blade, but Ethan gave a small shake of his head. This was not the time to fight. They were escorted to the central chamber of the ship, where members of both the human and Valen councils waited via hollow projection, their faces floating above the table like ghosts. The human elder's voice was sharp. "Ethan Cole, the evidence we have suggests your ship's systems were deliberately sabotaged from inside." Ethan froze. "Inside?" The Valen Chancellor's image leaned forward. "And the signal traces lead directly to your console." "That's impossible," Ethan said, anger rising in his voice. "I was fighting to keep us alive. Ask her," he said, gesturing toward Lyra. The council members turned their attention to her. For a long, tense moment, Lyra said nothing. Her golden eyes studied Ethan's face as if searching for something. Then she spoke, her voice calm but firm. "The human did not sabotage the ship. Without him, I would not be standing here. A ripple of surprise passed through the hollow council. It was the first time Liara had publicly defended him. Ethan felt a strange flicker inside, something between gratitude and confusion. The human elder was not convinced. Regardless, the bond ceremony will proceed sooner than planned. Too many incidents have happened already, and delaying only risks more. The Valen leader agreed. Yes, the sooner this bond is sealed, the sooner. Both our worlds can be secure. Ethan's jaw tightened. So this is it? We just skip over the fact someone tried to kill us? But his words fell into silence. The councils had made their choice. Back in the private quarters of the ship, Ethan sat on the edge of the bench, running a hand through his hair. Liara stood near the viewport, her eyes on the stars. You didn't have to defend me back there, he said quietly. She didn't turn to look at him. Yes, I did, she replied. If you fall human, then so does the bond, and if the bond falls, so does the peace. Ethan let out a small, humorless laugh. So I'm just part of the deal, huh? Liara finally turned, her voice lower now. No, you are part of the war that has not yet been fought. Somewhere deep in the ship, a shadow moved through the maintenance corridors. A figure in dark gear slipped a data chip into the comm array. Their voice was a whisper over a hidden channel. The stage is set for the ceremony. Another voice replied in static. Good, when the bond begins, we strike. Back in their quarters, Ethan looked at Liara. He could see the faint tension in her shoulders, the unspoken truth in her eyes. They were walking into the ceremony not as a couple, but as two targets wearing the same mark, and neither knew how much time they had left before the next attack. The bonding ceremony. The Hall of Unity stood like a shining jewel in the heart of the capital. Its walls were carved from white crystal, glowing softly under the light of the twin suns. Inside, banners of both the Human Alliance and the Valen Empire hung side by side, swaying gently in the artificial breeze. Ethan entered through the west gate, dressed in ceremonial armor lined with silver thread. The weight of it felt strange, heavier than battle gear, heavier than anything he had worn before. Across the hall, Liara approached from the east, wearing a gown of layered silver and deep blue, the fabric moving like flowing water with every step. Her golden eyes found his for the briefest moment before she looked away. The hall was filled with leaders, diplomats, and witnesses from across the stars. Even the balconies above were crowded with onlookers. At the center of the hall stood the bonding crystal, a tall pillar of pure light, its surface alive with shifting colors. It was said that when two people placed their hands upon it, their life energies intertwined, creating a link no distance could break. The High Chancellor's voice echoed through the hall. Ethan Cole of the Human Alliance, Liara Valen of the Valen Empire, stepped forward. Ethan walked to the crystal, his boots echoing in the silence. Liara joined him, standing close enough that he could hear the soft rhythm of her breathing. The Chancellor continued, "You will place your hands upon the crystal. You will speak the oath, and the bond will be made." Ethan and Liara raised their hands, the light from the crystal spilling across their skin. Just as their fingers brushed the surface, a sharp, high-pitched sound sliced through the air. Ethan's instincts kicked in a split second before the explosion. He lunged sideways, shoving Liara to the ground as a blast ripped through the far wall. The force threw him against the crystal, pain shooting through his body. Debris rained from above, and the hall filled with smoke and chaos. Lyra's voice cut through the noise. "Ethan!" She scrambled toward him, her hands shaking as she saw the dark burn spreading across his side where the blast had hit. The guards swarmed the hall, shouting orders, pulling leaders to safety. Somewhere in the chaos, a cloaked figure slipped away into the crowd, unseen. Ethan tried to speak but coughed instead. His vision blurred, the edges of the room fading to white. "Don't stop the bond," he managed to whisper. Lyra's eyes widened. "You fool," she said, her voice trembling for the first time. But she turned toward the crystal, pulling him with her. placing her hand firmly against the glowing surface. She pressed his hand over hers. The crystal flared with blinding light, its colors racing through them both. Ethan felt a surge of heat and energy flood his body, pushing back the darkness creeping in. Liara spoke the oath in her native tongue, the words vibrating through the air like a living thing. When the light finally dimmed, the bond was complete. Ethan lay against her, breathing hard. He could feel her heartbeat in his own chest, hear her thoughts like faint whispers in the back of his mind. "You're not allowed to die now," she said softly. He managed a faint smile. "Guess that makes two of us." Around them, the hall was in ruins, the air thick with smoke. The Chancellor's voice was distant, calling for medics, but Ethan and Liara didn't move. For the first time, they weren't just human and alien. They were bound, in life, in danger. And in whatever fight was coming next, far away, in the shadows of a hidden chamber, the cloaked figure watched the news feed. "So they bonded after all," the voice said with quiet amusement. "Good. Now let's see how strong that bond really is." Eternally tied Ethan woke to the steady rhythm of a heartbeat that wasn't his own. For a moment, he didn't understand why his chest felt warmer, why every breath seemed to echo with another's. Then it hit him, the bond. He sat up slowly. In the recovery chamber, the white light of the med bay glowing around him, Liara stood at the far end of the room, looking out through the glass at the sprawling alien capital. Her silver hair caught the light, and in the reflection, Ethan could see her golden eyes. She turned when she felt his gaze. "Not saw, felt. I can hear you," she said quietly. Ethan frowned. "Then you know what I'm thinking." "Yes," she replied, her lips almost curving into a smile. "And you know what I'm feeling." He swung his legs over the side of the bed, wincing at the lingering ache from the blast. "You risked yourself to finish the bond," he said. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You risked yourself to save me first." They stood in silence for a moment, neither quite knowing what to do. With this new connection that pulsed between them, outside, the city buzzed with the false calm of politics. The council celebrated the success of the ceremony, calling it a new era of peace, but Ethan and Liara knew better. Peace built on fragile glass could shatter with one wrong step. That night, they stood together on a high balcony overlooking the city. Ethan leaned against the railing. "So, what now?" Liara's voice was low, steady. "Now we watch, we listen. We find the one who tried to end this before it began." In the distance, the twin moons hung low over the skyline, their light casting silver shadows across the streets. Ethan glanced at her. "You know, you're stuck with me now," he said, half teasing. Lyra's golden eyes met his. "I know, human," she said softly, "and I intend to make sure you survive long enough to regret it." Somewhere far away, in a chamber, hidden from the eyes of both governments, the cloaked figure studied a map marked with strange symbols. A quiet voice spoke from the shadows. "They've bonded fully. It will be harder to break them." The figure's answer was cold and certain. "Then we will not break them. We will make them choose." Back on the balcony, Ethan felt a faint ripple through the bond, not from Liara, but from something beyond. A shadow brushing against the edge of their connection. He met her gaze. "You felt that too, didn't you?" Her hand rested on the hilt of her blade. "Yes," she said, her voice calm but fierce. "They are coming." And as the night wind swept across the alien capital, two hearts now beat to the same rhythm, bound not just by duty or politics, but by the fire of survival.